Good morning. So we're back on the case today. So we're going to jump right into it. Today we're going to start pulling some injectors. If you watched last video, cylinder 1, cylinder 3, when I cracked the injectors while I was running, there was little to no change in RPM. So something is going on there. Did some research and some studying from last week until now. How to remove the injectors, how to take them apart, how to adjust them for pressure, and also how to clean them. Injectors should be putting out anywhere from 1850 to 2000 psi per injector. That's the first thing I'm going to check to see if it's opening too soon or if it's actually just stuck open and they're leaking. So we're going to get right into it, not waste any time, and we're going to pull number 3 here because it's the easiest one. There's nothing in the way, no lines or anything in the way. We'll pull that one first. We'll try testing it and cleaning it. We'll put it back in. I'll then run the tractor, crack the line to see if I did anything good or if I made it worse. So with some of the other injectors, they're close to, there's not a lot of obstruction, but they are, like, I'd have to remove this line and they're a little bit closer to hitting things. So number 3 is wide open and it is one of the ones giving us trouble. So we have to take off the bleed lines and we have to take off the main injector line underneath. And then we'll pull the 2 bolts or nuts and hopefully I can get this to twist and come out. God knows how long they've been in there for. It is a tight fit going into the block down in there, so hopefully they're not rusted in. We'll pull that one out and we'll try and see what we can do. Now, after the video from last week, one thing that's not on it that I noticed, after I ran the tractor, there is a fine black sand that I can only assume come out of the exhaust. So one of the issues I may be having as well too with the excess smoke is not only an injector, but so much carbon buildup inside the combustion chamber that it's just puking it out. So I had lots of good input from people on the internet and some friends. And once I can get these injectors working, we're going to get this thing outside and get her good and hot, like a couple hour run, maybe even put a load on it, and we'll see what happens. So we'll get right at it, start pulling this injector and see what we can do. So I got the lines loosened off and the bottom one taken out, but now I'm a little bit confused here of how I'm supposed to get these little bleed lines off. They only move like 1/8 of an inch and they're down in here quite a ways. The injector itself does move back and forth inside the hole so it's not jammed in there, but I'm not quite sure how to get these out. My only thought is I have to start pulling the injector so these lines come out sideways and maybe they'll pop out. Let's try a bigger pry bar. Oh, there we go. Wow. And it all just falls apart. Perfect. There we go. There's our injector. She is... Oh, you can see that it's pretty carboned up on the end. And she's dirtying the hole, but it's not so bad. So anyway, gonna wipe this down a little bit. Careful not to shove any dirt into the injector tip. We're gonna get it cleaned up and then get this thing on the injector stand. So here we are. We have the injector hooked up to the tester. I've never used one of these before, but again, a little internet reading and we'll figure it out. This little dial here, this is where I set where I want it to be. For PSI, that's 2000, there's 19. 1850 is as low as it's supposed to be, according to the manual that I downloaded for the Case Tractor. So it should pop open at 1850, and it should have a nice spray pattern. Now, I read about these. This engine has what's called, I think it's called a power cell. So on the injector, there should be two patterns. One a fine mist, like a normal injector, and then one a little squirt that kind of comes straight off the end that's supposed to spray into this power boost and injector thingy. I don't know what it... I don't really understand it. I'll have to read more about that. But I think they call it a power cell. So let's see what happens here. So, and we start building our pressure. 1500 psi. 1850. Oh, and there she goes. That seemed early. There's 1850 right there. And I'm getting what's called drip. Now that's where I think is the issue. Yes, it does blow off at 1850, but that drip, I think, is one of the problems that I may be having. Allowing fuel to pass without the injector fully opening. So what I'm going to do is the fluid that's in here is this diesel injector cleaner fluid for doing these injectors. So I'm going to continue to pump this for a while, getting the fluid to go through it, and maybe it'll unplug itself or unstick itself. And then we're going to pull the nozzle off to make sure and see if we can soak it in the cleaner as best as we can too. So for the last 20 minutes, I've been, I pull the handle till the injector opens and the fluid sprays out. And I let it sit for a minute. Then I pull it again, spray some more fluid out. And as I've been doing that, pressure, the maximum pressure that it's been opening now is getting close to 2000, which is the max that it's supposed to be. So I'm going to assume that the cleaner is doing its job. It's allowing the, I guess it's like a plunger inside to open where the spring is attached, and the tip itself is cleaning. So I also realized if I take this knob and I turn it down, this actually will read my maximum PSI. It'll stay there. So when I pull this down, it opens. So if I run this injector, you can see it appears to be a nice pattern. And then I check the red needle, so it's opening at a maximum 2000 psi. So I've gained some pressure here. So I think that it's cleaning itself up nicely. So I'm going to let this sit for another 5 minutes and then run it again. Well, it is actually the next day after the last part of that video you just watched. You saw I was checking the temperature on the exhaust manifold. Number 1 was really hot, so was number 4. Number 3 was it was hot. I couldn't keep my hand on it for a while. But number 2, it was cold. There was nothing. And you probably noticed as well, this was really wet here. Right out of the bottom of both manifolds, I was pure diesel fuel coming out. There is no combustion going on in these 2 cylinders at all. And that's never good. So I figure we have one of 3 things going on, or it could be a combination of them all. The exhaust valves are either bent and not traveling and not fully closing. Number 2, they're gummed up and they're stuck open. Or number 3, there's so much carbon built up in those valves that they're not closing all the way as well. There's no glow plugs on this engine. It only runs from combustion of the gases, especially starting up. So either way, doesn't matter which one of those 3 is the problem, those exhaust valves are not closing. I'm sure that's the issue. The injector, it made a difference. Made a difference in the fact that it puked out more smoke than it ever did, because now I'm getting full fuel still into a cold cylinder that is not burning it. So once I saw that yesterday, and I realized number 2 was a big issue, so was number 3. I kind of stopped the video, packed my crap up and went home to assess the situation of where I can get parts. Because it's gonna have to be torn down. We're gonna crack this engine open like an egg. The parts are cheap, all the gaskets. I found basically all of them. They're cheap, except for they're spread right across Canada and the US. A lot of stuff in Regina. I don't even know where Lebanon, USA is, but Case obviously has a main warehouse there, because online that shows where a lot of parts are as well. And also, being that it's 3 days before Christmas, I won't be seeing any of these parts anytime soon either. But we're gonna dive into this thing, because there's go big or go home. There's no point having an engine that don't work. I might as well play with it some more. We're gonna pull the rad, we'll drain the rad, pull the rad, remove a couple of the small things here, these lines. Remove our injector lines, because this is a split head. And there's 2 completely separate heads, there's a front and a rear head. So disconnect all the fuel lines. Let's see if I can take the decompression apart here in the center. Just be extra gaskets I don't have to buy if I can leave this together. And then we'll pull off the muffler, exhaust manifold, intake manifold, water jacket manifold. We'll yank all that off. Get a good look at underneath of the valve covers here. Hopefully there's not a lot of sludge buildup. Hopefully there's no moisture in this engine. And we'll also confirm that we are getting oil to the top of the heads and to the lifters, even because we are building oil pressure, but doesn't mean that it's making it to the top. So start pulling all that stuff off. Get all the manifolds off. Then we'll take off the covers here and take a look inside. It's gonna be a gooder. going to take a moment here and show you something. So that's the valve shaft or the slide that's in there, the guide. You can see this engine is pretty dirty because you can see the carbon buildup in there. But to me, it's usable. Look at that. That's almost unreal. See how much gap there is in here? It's like an inch tall by 2 inches wide. Non-restricted for the exhaust to come out. This side you can barely see it. It's smaller than a marble. And this side, look at the buildup in there. This ain't a new problem. Even when this tractor was being used and run every day, this has been going on for a long time. It is rock solid carbon. Look at that. Well, let's keep going. They're real nice inside those valve covers. No sludge buildup. It's kind of like a white grease, it looks like. If there's too much moisture in the engine. There's no rust inside these covers, which is awesome. And inside here, looking good too. Got lots of oil. Lots of oil sitting on the top of the push rods, which is good. So we are getting our oil coming through and weeping out. So that's a bonus. So now, see these rods actually go all the way up and they connect to the other side here for the decompression. So pull those pins, and then hopefully this will all slide right out. And then we can remove this decompression rack. I thought it might have come apart right here, but this is actually just a stop against the block. I guess so you don't push the valves open too far in case they come in contact with the pistons or something like that. So we do have to remove this in one piece. So let's disconnect the rack. So now it's all the easy stuff that's come off now. Next, we have to pull this lifter rack off, both cylinders. So before I start, first thing I'm going to do is going to open this cap here, and we're going to get the engine top dead center by our markings in there. Then I'm going to mark all this stuff here, you know, front cylinder, rear cylinder, and then number everything as well, so I know that it goes back into the same spot where it was. So we'll take this all apart. We're going to pull the push rods and check those to make sure they're all straight, and then we'll get into taking those heads off. Okay, so I got everything ready here. I've loosened off these bolts already, holding the rack on. Engine is at top dead center. I got myself a little gurney over here. So we're going to work on the front cylinder first, cylinders 1 and 2. Going to remove all that off and set it over onto the table so I can mark it all as front cylinders and number my rods and stuff. And then we'll go on to number 2, same thing, move it all over. Oh, kind of unsure what's holding this all down. I think it's just the dip tube. There it goes. Now, I was under the impression that these slide right out, but they're hitting on something. Guess we'll leave that for now, move the other one. Have to jump onto the manual quickly for a second. Don't want to be doing anything stupid. According to online, they do just pull out. One guy said that they actually suction cup themselves into the whatever the bottom part of the lifters that rides on the cam. So they just give a little tug and up they come. There we go. So we're going to pull all these rods, line them up so we can number them, and we'll make sure they're all straight. So there we go. We got our front cylinder 1 and 2, rear 3 and 4. Everything laid out as it came out of the engine. So we are going to label this and put them in separate boxes as well. Front, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Rear, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just to make sure that it goes back the way it was. So that I don't know if there's any changing. I don't know what happened down, in its past, but at least then I know it went right back together the same way it came apart. So when I put it on, I adjust my valve clearances. Hopefully everything is good as new. All right. Hopefully these will just pop right off. Oh God. Heavier than they look. Oh. Well, now this one is stuck on something. Not sure what, because it is moving quite freely down here. Oh, there it goes. Well, good news. Pistons are in awesome shape. Cylinder walls look good. There's no real edge on them, which is nice. You can see the raw fuel still inside that cylinder and all the carbon caked up around the outside. Now this one was the worst, cylinder number 3, looking through the intake valve, but it's actually cleaner than number 2. But they're easily polished. One thing I'm surprised is the head gaskets are just a straight sheet of copper. Now I'm cheap. I almost think we'll use them again, but I'm not that cheap. We are going to get new head gaskets. Now let's go take a look at the heads. Well, this is the front 2 cylinders. As you can see, completely wet. This is not burning at all. So that exhaust valve could almost guarantee that it is not closing all the way. Number 1, nice carbon deposits, dry, so it's running. She's looks like she's got a little hot there, burnt that carbon up. But all in all, it looks really good. Now we'll be able to buff this all down. I am going to remove all the valves, buff it all down, clean it up good. Just see, make sure there's no cracks in around the edge of the valve seats where they sit. Pull everything off it, pull the studs out, clean the threads. I can polish the insides of the intakes, got to chip that off. There's so much stuff in there. And we'll get this thing look like new. So let's grab the rear cylinder head and take a look at that. And it's the exact same thing. Cylinder number 3 and 4. 2 I could hold, right? There was no heat at all. This one had some heat, but not a lot. And it's still wet, so incomplete combustion. And cylinder number 4, which is running good and hot, looks okay. Same thing, got a little bit hot there, a little carbon burnt. But all in all, they're in good shape. So, I'm gonna pull these gaskets off the top here and let things dry up. It's gonna be it for the video for this weekend. Got a lot done. Start cleaning on this stuff, and tomorrow I'll start looking to where I'm ordering what from. Like I said, parts are all across Canada in different warehouses, across the US in different warehouses. Doesn't look like anything's local, but maybe I'll luck out. And nothing's expensive. They're all cheap, real cheap. Things like the intake gaskets for the manifold, they're actually little crush collar things that look like they're in pretty good shape. I might be able to use those again if I can't get them right away. But thanks again for watching. We're definitely getting into this thing deeper than I thought I ever would. So stay tuned.